Hello and welcome to the penalty box.
If you are firm and you are sure that you can move and you can score, here's the ball, there's the net, double, kick it, ready, set.
Well, on Sunday we'll have the Germans facing, of course, the Argentinians. Who is going to win this tournament? World Cup 2014 in Brazil. I'm Peter Clottey. Welcome once again to the penalty box. Will it be the German Mannschaft, led by Philipp Lahm, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Jerome Boateng, and the rest? Or will it be the mercurial Messi, who is arguably the best player in the world, supported by Mascherano and the rest? The experts are here, and they will dissect the scenario ahead of the finals on Sunday. So, guys, what say you?
I'd like the better team, Germany, to beat the team with the superstar, the magical individual. It could go either way, simply because a superior defense, can clamp down a superior offense, as we saw in the Argentina-Netherlands semifinal. I would like to think the Germans have a slight edge going in because they have the better offense, they have the better team altogether. But of course, there have been so many finishes, so many crazy finishes in this World Cup, you can't tell either way.
I was thinking that the Germans, in addition to being slightly stronger coming in, have a little bit more momentum. They've been third in the last two cups. They didn't come to get second. The fact that they're here really means that they've been able to execute in spite of some kind of lackluster games along the way. And they really probably want it very badly. And I also think that the Argentines have something to prove too and could do it. I'm going to give it to the Germans.
Well, first of all, I have to say that I saw the last edition of Penalty Box, and this guy really knows his football. So you and I have to bring our A game today.
Uh-oh.
I think that I agree with the panel so far. My pick coming into the tournament was Germany, and now that they're in the final, I'm certainly not going to go off of that now. I think that as a fan who's trying to analyze the final, it's way too easy to get caught up in sort of the fog of 7-1 over Brazil.
I agree.
And I think we have to forget about that score and look at how the Germans managed that game, taking advantage of every single breakdown that Brazil had. And before Brazil could even catch their breath, the match was over. As Robert said, you take the majestic play of Messi versus the class of that German defense, and Argentina is going to be great, but I think Germany is probably going to be just a little bit better on Sunday.
The tricky situation is that you have the intense rivalry between Brazil and Argentina. Now, will Argentina rub insult into the wounds of Brazil by winning the World Cup in Brazil's own backyard, looking at the intense rivalry? Or will the German machine, I mean, Joachim Löw has so far been tactically spot on. Defense, midfield, attack, they've been superb.
But I think it's very important what Barbara just said, because no question Germany have a good, they're gelling very well. If I may use this Americanism right here, there's a good atmosphere among the team as far as I can tell. It's a likable group. They play well with one another. A lot of these guys have been together for years. Joachim Löw obviously has shown his stuff. I mean, he was a club manager before he became Klinsmann's assistant, in the German national team. He's managed this side for many, many years. So you have a very, very, very experienced side going in, and there's no question they feel they can do it. And by the way, I think you were spot on about the semifinal, because I wouldn't read too much into it. That semifinal, that's the sort of things you really want to ask a sports psychologist about, because this was so unbelievable on every level. I don't think any of us will ever see anything like that in our lives again. If I were Brazil, if I were Scolari, if I were David Luiz, all of these Brazilian stars, I would just try to the extent possible to get a couple of good nights sleep and then start over from there and forget that this game ever happened. I mean, I don't think anything like that is imaginable, will be seen again,
One thing most people tend to forget is that Sabella, who is the coach of the Argentina national team, who is exposed to the English league for some time because he played there as a football player for a number of teams, has been quiet but very astute. He's been able to outmaneuver some of his opponents. Will he be up to the challenge of Joachim Löw?
This makes me think of the 1990 final, in which you had a superior or at least the best team in the field. German team, highly attacking, knew how to play with one another going into the final. And the Argentine tactic with one superstar, Maradona at the time, was to clamp down on defense and try taking it to penalty kicks, and it very, very nearly succeeded. So this may be what happens this time around.
I think individuals versus team, as he just said. I think that's one of the reasons why you give Germany the edge. But you were talking about coaches and tactics, and part of the conversation today, just to take a step backward to the semifinal round, was Van Gaal's decision with his substitutes after brilliant strategy in the Costa Rica match and bringing Krul on for the penalties.
Oh yeah.
To use all his substitutes in a game that was clearly destined for penalties to anybody who was watching the semifinal, and to use all the substitutions and to not have that ability to bring Krul on for the penalties again was, if you're a Dutch fan, had to be devastating.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I think is going to be interesting is the Argentines really made Netherlands look bad yesterday. And making Netherlands look bad is somewhat of a feat because they've been pretty strong most of this tournament. And so, but they did it in a fairly ugly way and boring, and I think they have the ability to do that with the Germans too, just really shut them down, close off their opportunities. And I agree that the 7-1 victory I don't think the Germans are taking that into consideration.
Hell no.
No. One thing is, Diego Maradona became Diego Maradona because he led Argentina to win the 1986 World Cup.
One of the best World Cups ever, by the
Absolutely.
way. And a great final also against West Germany.
Lionel Messi be able to achieve that feat? Because one of the criticisms leveled against him is that he's won all the trophies at club level for Barcelona. He's not been able to do that with the national team in Argentina. This time, will that be different?
I mean, I'm aware of that kind of criticism because you can talk about superstars all you want, but soccer is a team sport. But having said this, his chance may reside in the relative shakiness of Germany's defense. Because at the end of the day, one of the criticism against Germany's defense, you have 4 center backs, which means 2 center backs, natural center backs, are playing on the wings. Right. So some teams have been able to take advantage of that. Let's recall Ghana's very good performance, right, in the group stage match. But nonetheless, that's going to be his chance, So will he by himself have enough firepower to make up for all the German onslaughts in the final? I suppose, time will tell.
But don't forget, you have Angel Di Maria, you have Philip Aguero. You have quite a potent force. He has a lot of support.
They are very good. If not, they would not have made it to that level. Maybe I'm taking also the group stage matches into consideration, where clearly Messi's brilliance showed, and you really got the sense that everything was going through him.
Let me ask you, Barbara, you saw Brazilians humiliated. What was your assessment?
Well, my introduction to World Cup soccer was as a college student living in Brazil in 1982.
Really?
Yeah, when they lost in the quarterfinal, I think.
To Italy.
Yes.
Great game.
Devastating game. First of all, just witnessing World Cup soccer as an American abroad was quite enlightening. And then to see the devastation of a country, I was living in São Paulo, of a city. So the highs and the lows of World Cup soccer in a 2-week tutorial. So I have an idea of what they're going through. I'm very gratified. At least I haven't seen a whole lot of coverage of riots and things. I'm actually fairly surprised, considering. I was driving during that semifinal, and I was listening on the radio, and I was, of course, devastated and surprised to hear that result, and half of it was in Spanish, so it was really tricky to keep listening through all the goals, but I did hear Alemania quite a bit. But the point is that when I got home and watched the highlights, so to speak, I found they made such rudimentary errors. The goalie in the second goal, I mean, they really missed their defensive captain. They really missed their him, I think, more than Neymar. But I also think they just, on some level, lost their mind. So I cannot imagine how Brazilians will recover. However, they are resilient, and they will, and they are very confident of their soccer abilities, so they'll regain it at some point. But it was tough.
Wonderful. Eric?
I think that so much of the conversation with the Brazilian national team has centered around emotion. And I think maybe that's one reason you haven't seen riots, because I think that they're still dealing with just the emotion of that letdown. But I think, and of course, it's so easy to sit here now and to look back. I think that if there had been any way for Brazil to keep that match scoreless for another 10 minutes, I think you would have seen a different outcome. Maybe not a Brazilian win, but I think that Brazil was coming in with so much pressure, number one, without two key players on the team, number two, and before they even had a chance to get their feet underneath them, so to speak, they were down 1-0. And I think that they were never able to catch their breath. Clearly, they were never able to regain any form, no rhythm whatsoever. So I just think that it happened so quickly. Again, it was just a matter of no confidence coming in, and it showed early and often.
Well, some people say that although they missed Neymar greatly, Silva's loss really exposed Brazil's defensive frailties. Because if you remember, Phil Neville, who plays in the English PL, accused David Luiz of being like a 10-year-old boy playing with a PlayStation because he makes too many mistakes. And at one point in time, the Chelsea coach Mourinho deployed David Luiz as a defensive midfielder in order to not to allow him to make mistakes so close to the penalty box. Some people say, well, he's good in defense because he's been quite inspirational in some games, sometimes others. But people also tend to forget that the Germans had their tactics spot on. They attack spaces, press them high on the pitch, close down the Brazilians so fast, and they took advantage of their defensive weaknesses.
It's a coherent explanation. It makes perfect sense. But again, I don't think anything, whether it be Germany's tactic or the deployment or misdeployment of David Luiz or the loss of Neymar, the loss of Thiago Silva, I don't think anything can explain such a disaster for Brazil, which is, again, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I think it's a truly unique result because I can't think of anything comparable, anything similar in any major sport at this level with those stakes for an organizing country that was looking to win on home soil.
With such a gifted team.
Thank you. Although yes and no. Although a point you made that I thought was very important. You say Brazilians took the defeat in stride. I think one of the big reasons is that they may have known all along that this was not their best team.
Absolutely.
So,
at one point they were supporting the German team because they were playing so well. Yes. That is the Brazilian supporters for you. Well, folks, that's about all time will permit us for today. I'm Peter Clotty. Bye for now.